My name is Lena Hart. I am 35 years old. And 3 months ago, my mom handed the $5.2 million business I built from scratch over 12 years to my older sister like it was a birthday gift. The words came out steady, almost casual, but my chest was pounding. 12 years of my life, nights spent alone in a tiny office turning a dream into reality, boiled down to a sentence. And the person who should have been my biggest supporter, my own mother. We were sitting in an Italian restaurant in downtown Denver. The kind with white linen tablecloths, candlelight flickering across the wine glasses, and the soft murmur of conversations in the background. It should have been celebratory. It should have been my moment. Instead, my mother slid a manila folder across the table. "We've decided your sister will take over," she said as casually as if she were passing me the salt. I stared at the folder. My name, my logo, my years of sweat and sleepless nights, but it was all just words on paper now. "She has kids," Mom continued, gesturing vaguely toward my sister, who was smirking like this was the punchline to a joke. "She needs stability." My dad nodded, echoing her words with a grin that made my stomach turn. "You'll work under her. She deserves it more. She has kids." I forced a short laugh, nodding. I placed my fork down so hard it clattered against the plate. Heads turned at the neighboring tables. A couple glanced over, their expressions a mix of curiosity and sympathy. I stood up, leaving the dessert untouched. A small gesture of defiance in a moment that was anything but sweet. Inside, my mind raced, but I kept my exterior calm. No tears. No screaming. That wasn't who I was. Not now. Not after 12 years of building something no one else could. My sister's smirk burned into my memory. The casual way she accepted a gift I had earned, the entitlement written across her face. My mother's eyes avoided mine, as if she expected me to understand that this wasn't betrayal. It was just family dynamics. I walked out of the restaurant, the cold Denver air hitting my face. My hands were shaking, but my heart was clear. Shock had turned into something else, something sharper. Rage. Determination. 12 years. That's how long I had been building this business, turning it from a tiny rented office space into a $5.2 million brand that was recognized nationally. Every sleepless night, every unpaid bill, every risk I took, it had all been for this, and yet the phrase "you'll work under her" somehow made it worse than losing the business outright. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. A statement that said, "Your effort doesn't matter. Your loyalty doesn't matter. We'll just hand it to someone else and expect you to smile." The paperwork trap made it worse. My mother's name, her credit, her legal structure of the business. It was all set up so that, technically, it was just formalities. But in practice, it meant my control, my legacy, my life's work, was now in their hands. And that's when I knew something had to change. The promise of revenge wasn't born from bitterness. It was born from justice. From the knowledge that anyone who underestimated me had no idea what I was capable of. If you want to know how the business they stole from me nearly took them down, I thought to myself, feeling a calm fire settle in my chest, stay with me. Humiliation. Controlled rage. Determination. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. That wasn't my story. My story was one of grit, intelligence, and unshakable resolve. And from that day forward, every action I took was with a single purpose: to reclaim what was mine, and to make sure the people who betrayed me understood the cost. The folder sat on my desk for days, a reminder of the betrayal. But it also became the first spark in a fire that would change everything. My mother had handed my empire to my sister, expecting compliance. She didn't know me. She didn't know that a quiet storm was already forming, and that in the weeks to come, I would turn every betrayal into my advantage. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood just outside Denver, the kind where every house had a manicured lawn and a white picket fence that whispered "normal family." My mother, Evelyn, was a bank manager. Polished, precise, always in control. My father, Thomas, a civil engineer with a calm demeanor, quietly built our life from behind the scenes. And then there was my sister, Rachel. 5 years older than me, and from the day she was born, the golden child. Straight A's, student council president, teacher's pet, The kind of kid whose every accomplishment earned applause from relatives, teachers, and friends alike. From the outside, we looked like a perfect family. But inside, there was a pattern, a quiet inequality that no one talked about, but that shaped every moment of my childhood. Take school lunches. One morning, Rachel forgot hers. Mom jumped in, driving across town to deliver a peanut butter sandwich, a juice box, and a smile. I forgot mine. You'll survive. Grab something from the cafeteria, she said, brushing past me like it was nothing. Material goods told the same story. Rachel got brand new clothes, a shiny phone, and a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Me. Hand-me-downs, praise for being low maintenance, and a subtle lesson. Ambition was fine, but comfort? That was reserved for the favored one. Milestones only deepened the divide. When Rachel moved to Chicago, Mom was on a plane the next day, helping her settle, wiring money for the condo. When Rachel pursued her MBA, every tuition dollar covered, every test prep course booked. My college. You're resourceful. You'll figure it out. The same words repeated like a mantra, a constant reminder of my place in the family hierarchy, stacked together. These moments painted a clear picture. Rachel got the safety net, the applause, the investment. I got the expectation that I should survive, and be grateful for it. Then came Rachel's complicated pregnancy. Multiple hospital stays, frightening tests, endless late-night calls from doctors. Mom dropped everything. She flew to Chicago, staying by Rachel's side for weeks. And me. I was in college, juggling assignments, work, and life with a small phone call to check in. You'll be okay, right? Your sister needs me, she said. Her words still haunt me. The invisible scale of love, attention, and priority was clear. Rachel's needs outweighed mine every single time. It was life or death stakes for my sister, yes, but the pattern was unmistakable. Every crisis, every achievement, every milestone somehow always centered around her. And me. I was expected to adapt, survive, and understand. The final straw came during my senior year of college. I had won a regional design contest, a first for our school. My mom promised she would attend. I taped the email to the fridge and counted the days. The morning of the event, her call came from Chicago. Rachel had an interview plus childcare stress. Mom was flying out to help. Dad came instead, showing up alone, clapping too loudly in an empty auditorium, trying to fill the gap. You know how your mom is with your sister, he whispered as I walked off the stage, diploma in hand. The applause felt hollow, the empty seat beside me a permanent reminder. Achievements of mine were secondary. Recognition, attention, even pride. All given sparingly. Only after Rachel had taken her due over the years, I learned the family excuses. She's been through a lot, or you'll understand when you're older. Comparison was a constant. Rachel's promotion versus my first paying client. Is it a real job? My mother would ask, dismissing digital design work, the very thing I would turn into a six-figure career. Even the small gestures of support were conditional. A laptop I needed for college. Dad paid cash from Craigslist like a secret transaction, quietly covering the bare minimum. I stopped asking for more. Learned helplessness turned into self-preservation. I stopped expecting their validation. Instead, I learned to bet on myself. That was the turning point. I whispered to myself over and over. If no one in my family is going to bet on me the way they bet on Rachel, I will bet on myself. I will build something so undeniable that they can't ignore it. The fire in me shifted. No longer was I just surviving the golden child dynamic. I was learning how to harness it. Each slight, each act of favoritism became fuel for a future they couldn't control. I would outwork them, outsmart them, and create a life they couldn't take away without consequences. What I didn't realize back then was that the same mother who never fully believed my work was real would one day use it as leverage. On paper, in court, in every family discussion about who deserved it more. The irony was cruel, almost poetic. The woman who dismissed my talent would one day try to decide my fate using the very work she ignored. And yet, that knowledge would only make me stronger. Because if there was one thing I had learned growing up in the shadow of a golden child, it was this. The world doesn't owe you validation, family doesn't owe you loyalty, and the only person who will fight for your success is you. And I was ready. After college, I planted myself in a co-working space in downtown Denver. It wasn't glamorous. Just exposed brick walls, a shared kitchenette, and a second-hand laptop that wheezed every time I opened Photoshop. My backpack was thrift store-bought, stickers peeling off the sides, and sticky notes covered every inch of my tiny desk. I called the business Heartline Digital, combining my last name with the concept of a brand lifeline, the idea that a business's story was its heartbeat. My first clients were scrappy. Coffee shops with mismatched menus, yoga studios with handwritten class schedules, real estate agents desperate for a web presence. I charged way too little and worked way too many hours, surviving on instant coffee and sheer stubbornness. Each small win felt monumental. Each project completed was another brick laid in the empire I was quietly building, brick by brick, from the ground up. Bank meetings were brutal. Young, irregular income, thin credit history, they said no. When Mom offered to help, I hesitated. But her words were so convincing. It's just paperwork, sweetheart. You'll always be the one running things. At the kitchen table, pen in hand, I signed an LLC formed in her name. Legally, she owned it. Practically, I ran it. I was naive, trusting, and grateful. It never occurred to me then that just paperwork could become the greatest weapon against me. I believed in her. I believed that the work I poured my heart into would always belong to me. That trust would later cost me more than I could imagine. Those early years were relentless. I shared a tiny apartment with a roommate whose desk was littered with post-it notes and half-finished scripts. Takeout and instant noodles became a routine. When the heat went out for a week, I worked bundled in 3 sweaters, sipping lukewarm coffee to stay awake. Clients haggled, demanding discounts for exposure. I took ridiculous projects just to keep the lights on. Each rejection, each negotiation, each sleepless night was a lesson in resilience. My work was digital, but the struggle was real. Modern-day poverty porn for aspiring entrepreneurs, minus the Instagram glamour. Then came the campaign for a local solar panel company. Initially, I focused on tech specs and engineering language, but nothing resonated. After dozens of revisions, I shifted the story to real families and their energy savings. The campaign took off. Shared online, it doubled inquiries almost overnight. I discovered my niche: climate tech and green companies. Brilliant engineers who were terrible storytellers needed someone to translate their work into human language. And I was perfect for that role. I rebuilt the website, targeting impact-driven companies. Conferences became my classrooms and battlefields. Cheap exhibitor tables in Denver and Boulder, networking over hotel bar cocktails with founders in Patagonia vests, LinkedIn follow-ups like my life depended on it, panels, speeches, strategy sessions. Every small connection multiplied. Each handshake, each follow-up, each story told was another rung up the ladder, another step toward a reputation that couldn't be ignored. I hired my first team. A laid-off copywriter thrilled to start anew, a video editor who made ideas look as good as they sounded, and a strategist obsessed with spreadsheets the way I could never be. Our warehouse district office was small, with a creaky coffee machine that worked only when it felt like it. And Mom, she'd call from time to time. "Good thing I set everything up properly," she'd say, her words layered with warmth, and something darker underneath. An unintentional foreshadowing of the leverage she would one day wield. We evolved beyond logos and social posts. Full-scale digital launches, startup funding announcements, and video series changing perceptions of clean energy. Trips to San Francisco, Austin, and New York. Guys in suits who doubted me learned to respect me. By this point, Heartline Digital wasn't just my business. It was my life's work. Each campaign, each strategy, each success had been earned, fought for, and meticulously built over 12 relentless years. Year 12. Revenue hit $5.2 million. 30 people depended on me. Their rent, their kids' health insurance, their livelihoods. Our glass-walled office in downtown Denver gleamed. A logo on the door signaling legitimacy. Health benefits, 401k, Friday lunches. Heartline wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Alone in the office one night, city lights glowing outside, I whispered to myself, I did it. I finally did it. Is it a real job? Comment, every hand-me-down laptop, Every overlooked milestone transformed into undeniable success, Mom called. "I always knew you'd make it big," she said. "The way we set things up is why you were able to scale this fast. It's a good thing you trusted me." I hung up, staring out at the city. "This is mine," I told myself. "I built this. We built this." The irony that the same signatures I had trusted at 22 could one day strip me of it was a thought I pushed aside. Until that fateful day, I never considered that the signatures I scribbled at 22 would one day give her the power to decide, with a single meeting and a couple of documents, that my 12 years of work legally belonged to someone else, and that, I realized, was the calm before the storm, the moment just before my world would be upended, and the fight I had prepared for my entire life would begin. Decades of quiet tension between my parents had been simmering, a barely visible thread stretching through my childhood, through every birthday, every milestone, every achievement Rachel had celebrated and I had quietly survived. And then it snapped. Lawyers entered the picture. Appraisals were requested. Negotiations began. I watched my parents' marriage, once a subtle backdrop to my life, become a battlefield of assets, liabilities, and resentments. Mom's tone shifted the instant Heartline came up. The words she spoke to her attorney made my stomach drop. "It's my business now," she said. The risk she took putting it under her name. Dad, uncomfortable, didn't fight. He simply nodded and accepted her framing. By the time the divorce was finalized, Heartline was carved out, completely separate from any marital settlement, like a fortress only she could control. And then came Victor. Real estate developer from Phoenix, the type whose wrist screamed wealth before his mouth did. Expensive watches, slick suits, endless charm. We met at a financial conference, and within a year, he was in my life. Golf outings, market predictions, discussions about Denver redevelopment. Soon, he asked the question that made my chest tighten. "Can Heartline brand my next luxury project?" The excitement of opportunity was tainted by a subtle warning in his tone, a transactional, calculating way of viewing my life's work, the kind that made my gut twist in recognition of a pattern I'd seen before. I stopped by Mom's house one afternoon, casually dropping by to say hello. Her phone rang, speakerphone echoing across the kitchen. "Loan structures, collateral. Established digital agency pledged alongside real estate." Every word hit me like a fist. My stomach knotted cold. She was using Heartline as collateral for Victor's project. Without my knowledge, without consent. Mom quickly turned off the call, smiling too wide, too casual. But the knot in my stomach didn't ease. IT was a quiet violation. The first real crack in the armor I thought I'd built around my business. A week later, family dinner. They called it to talk about the future. Estate planning, succession planning. They coded cruelty in corporate euphemisms. The folder slid between the wine glasses. Mom's voice, calm, practiced. Rachel would take over Heartline. Qualifications were listed like bullets in a resume. MBA. Management experience. 3 kids. Real security for her family. They said MY role. High-level executive. COO or creative director. Someone who did the work while Rachel made the big-picture decisions. The words hung in the air, tasting like betrayal. Work versus ownership, effort versus control, all neatly divided on a page. "Look, Lena, you're single. You're flexible. You'll be fine no matter what. Your sister has a whole family to support. Single equals disposable. Flexible equals expendable." And somehow, through a simple sentence, they quantified my worth as a human being and an entrepreneur. The scales of family favoritism and gender expectations were stacked, and I was at the bottom. I stared at the documents, at my family, at the betrayer sitting across from me. A realization crystallized. They had used every ounce of trust I'd ever given them to build a cage I was now expected to live in. A short, sharp laugh escaped me. It made my sister flinch. I reached for nothing, food untouched, wine ignored, and said clearly, "If that's how you want it, then you can run it without me." I walked out, not looking back. The drive home was quiet, my phone buzzing with "don't be dramatic" texts. I turned it face down. I didn't need approval. I didn't need permission. I didn't need them. Alone in my car, I realized the truth. If they were going to treat my life's work like a retirement plan, a consolation prize for Rachel, the most powerful thing I could do was walk away. And then make sure that without me, their newfound security was anything but no tears. No pleading. Just clarity. Economic consequences hung in my mind like a storm cloud. But it wasn't just about revenge. It was about boundaries, about reclaiming power, about showing that trust can't be weaponized without cost. By the end of the night, I had made my decision. Heartline would survive. I would survive. But the cage was theirs now, and it would prove far less comfortable than they expected. The initial wave of rage hit hard, a flash of disbelief and fury. But within hours I was doing what I did best. Math. $450,000 saved. Salary bonuses, tech stocks. No kids, no mortgage, paid off car. More than money, though. A brain full of every process, every campaign, every growth strategy that actually made Heartline valuable. The next morning I walked in as if nothing had changed. Rachel sat in the conference room, spreadsheets spread across the table, numbers she barely understood lining the screen. I smiled politely, nodded at the team, and at noon, hit send on my resignation email. Short. Polite. Final data, no accusations. No dramatic farewell. Just transition documents for the team. A professional cord cut cleanly, signaling that control had shifted. From the cage they built to the freedom I was claiming. Within a week, Bright North Studio existed on paper. An LLC under my name alone. A female lawyer specialized in small business guided the paperwork. "We're going to make sure no one can ever do to you what they just did," she said. Every account, every partnership, every contract belonged to the business, not to any puppet master hiding behind signatures. This time the structure was bulletproof. The lessons of Heartline, learned painfully, became my blueprint. The office was small, a few desks in a sunlit Denver tech center space. IKEA furniture, cardboard boxes, one lone coffee machine. Initially it felt like a downgrade, but it didn't matter. IT felt clean. Felt mine. For the first time in over a decade, I was building something without someone else's name sitting above the door, without anyone else's judgment coloring my success. Ownership wasn't just legal, it was visceral. One by one, I called Heartline's clients personally. Professional, concise, honest. There's a change in ownership and leadership. I've chosen to start a new agency. No pleas. No manipulations. Just clarity. The truth spoke for itself. Who made decisions? Who ran campaigns? Who could they trust? 70% chose to follow. Some waited for contracts to end. Others moved immediately. "We didn't sign with your mom," one client said. "We signed with you." That validation, quiet but undeniable, was sweeter than any paycheck. Within a month, 3 key people handed in their notices at Heartline and joined Bright North. The head of strategy, the senior video producer, and the performance marketer. Pay cuts were accepted willingly. The office was scrappy. Folding chairs, thrift store coffee machine. But the energy, electric. The thrill of building again, this time on my own terms, far outweighed the lack of luxuries. Ownership over every decision, every idea, every victory, made it priceless. That a friend invited me to an online summit about boundaries and burnout. I shared my story without ever naming family members or Heartline. 10 minutes. Focused. Impactful. The title. She built a $5.2 million business she didn't own. Views exploded. Comments poured in. "Read your contracts. Never put parents on paperwork. This is my worst nightmare." Vulnerability became power, turning a cautionary tale into a lesson for thousands of founders. Founders reached out, inspired. Discovery calls turned into contracts. A national climate tech company signed on because their CMO had watched the talk. Walking away had been the beginning, not the end. Revenge didn't require shouting or public drama. It was silent, undeniable, and infinitely more satisfying. Every success they thought they could claim now belonged entirely to me. I had built again. This time without betrayal lurking in the fine print. Every client, every team member, every campaign reaffirmed the same truth. Success, when fully owned, was the most powerful revenge of all. I heard snippets through former coworkers, the industry grapevine buzzing with gossip. Strange emails from Rachel. Junior staff making decisions they weren't qualified for. Research and discovery calls cut because they were too time-consuming. Deadlines moved forward to impress prospects. Only to fail, campaigns that had once run smoothly slipped. Long-time clients called me, frustration in their voices. New leadership doesn't listen. All talk about efficiency and process, missing the whole story. Feels hollow. One by one, clients began to migrate to Bright North. Natural consequences, not sabotage, revealed incompetence for what it was. That Victor's Phoenix real estate project was far more leveraged than anyone realized. Mom had tied everything together. Her retirement, Heartline, Victor's properties. When revenue dipped and clients left, the numbers looked bad to the bank. The collateral that once seemed like a boon became a liability. A vivid demonstration of greed colliding with poor management. 3 months after I walked away, my phone rang mid-workday. Mom's voice was tight. We need to talk. We met at a cafe near Denver Tech Center. Mom appeared tired, Dad adjusting his glasses nervously, Rachel's confident demeanor slightly frayed. Rachel spoke first. You've put us in a really difficult position. It's not fair. I simply replied. They're adults. They chose where to go. I didn't force anyone. The role reversal was intoxicating. They needed me now. I held the boundary, quiet but firm. Mom tried again. Heartline is struggling. Bank breathing down our necks. We need you back. COO under Rachel, they offered. Dad urged compromise. Put aside pride, greater good, you're still young. I asked questions, looked at the numbers, debt, loans, covenants. Heartline wasn't wobbling, it was sinking. Rachel blurted out. You could buy it. We could transfer control back. Fix it, sell later, we all win. Tempting, but I saw clearly what came with it. Mountain of debt, a board that had already sacrificed for my family, a family that always prioritized itself over my autonomy. No, I'm not coming back. I'm not working under Rachel. And I'm not buying a company that started failing because you didn't think I was worth owning it in the first place. Mom's tears fell quietly. We're your parents. This is your family. I replied calmly. You made a business decision. These are the consequences. Left cash for coffee, walked out. No gloating. No theatrics. Just dignity intact. 18 months later. Heartline sold to a larger agency. For a fraction of its worth. Buyer wanted contracts and equipment, not story. Proceeds barely covered Victor's failed project. Mom sold the Phoenix house, downsized. Dad freelanced. Rachel and family lost the suburban house. Moved into a cramped rental. Rachel called months later asking about HR/coaching roles at Bright North. I smiled politely. We're fully staffed. My team deserves better than bringing my family's dysfunction into the office. 2 years later, tech conference in Austin. Bright North had 45 employees, clients across the country. Annual revenue over $15 million. I was introduced as the woman who rebuilt everything from zero. Denver office twice the size of Heartline's. Plants, messy whiteboards, campaign wall covered with wins. Team loyal, energized, and completely mine. Proof that culture built on respect and boundaries surpasses what money alone can buy. Dating Eli, a climate tech software engineer, who knew the story and respected boundaries. No rush to marriage, no pressure to prove worth. Europe trip planned. Life complete, not just business. Chance grocery store encounter with Mom. She looked smaller somehow. Apologized quietly in half sentences. I resisted the urge to fix. Took a breath. Let the moment be what it was. A reminder, not a reopening. Weeks later, I dropped off my old laptop at Mom's apartment. Wiped clean. Note. Thank you for the beginning. I'll handle the rest from here. Symbolic full circle. Closure, not revenge. What my family endured wasn't karma. It was the natural outcome of treating people as tools, not partners. Using family as a shield for selfish decisions carries consequences. Success wasn't payback. It was proof. You can love your family and still say no. Be grateful for what they gave, but refuse to let them own your future. Lose what you thought was everything and still come out with more. You are the real asset, not the company, not the name on paper. Final thought. What would happen if, just once, you chose yourself and walked toward the life you actually want?